In a world where people walk past the weak and broken without even noticing, one moment, one choice, one whisper from a child can change everything if you believe in miracles. Stay with me till the end, and before I begin, make sure you hit subscribe right now, because stories like this one will leave you breathless, and you will never want to miss the next. There was a cold evening in a small American town when a mechanic named John, a rugged man with grease-stained hands and a heart he kept hidden behind layers of silence, found himself at the bottom of an old staircase in a crumbling apartment complex where his neighbor's little girl, frail and pale, was struggling to climb up to her mother's apartment, her small hands trembling on the rusted railing, her lips quivering as if each breath was a battle. And when John bent down to help, she looked at him with those large, sickly eyes and whispered the words that would change his life forever. "If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret." And though he never cared much for kids, nor for the business of other people, something in her fragile voice pierced through the armor of his soul, so he lifted her gently, carrying her up step by step, not knowing that this choice would unravel a chain of events so shocking, so dangerous, and so filled with redemption, that it would pull him into a world of lies, betrayal, and truth he never imagined. And as he reached the top and laid her carefully on the couch in her dim apartment where her mother worked night shifts and the girl was mostly alone, she leaned close and whispered, "They're watching us, don't tell anyone." And John froze, because those words did not sound like the fantasy of a child, but like the warning of someone who had seen too much. From that moment, John's life began to twist into shadows, because the girl, her name was Emily, started telling him bits of things whenever he helped her. Small pieces of a puzzle that sounded like they belonged in a spy novel, black cars, waiting outside at night, men in suits knocking on doors, and leaving when she coughed loudly. Strange envelopes slipped under the door, and though John wanted to dismiss it all, he soon realized the girl wasn't just sick in body, she was carrying a sickness of truth, something far more dangerous than fever. And when one night she begged him not to let her sleep because she said, "They come for me when I dream," John stayed awake with her until dawn and swore he saw a shadow outside the window that disappeared the moment he stood, and his heart began to pound with the realization that maybe she wasn't imagining anything at all. Maybe the reason she was always weak was because someone wanted her that way, drugged, slowed, silenced. But why would anyone target a poor little girl? John, being a mechanic, had never dealt with mysteries bigger than fixing carburetors. Yet he found himself swept into one, especially when Emily gave him a folded paper she had hidden beneath the couch cushion with shaking hands, whispering, "This was my father's. Don't let them find it." And when John opened it, he found coded numbers, names, and the outline of something that looked like a government seal. And in that moment he understood that her father's disappearance years ago was not just an accident, but something much darker. And then the knocking came, sharp and heavy. 3 men in dark coats, asking politely about the little girl's health. Too polite, the kind of polite that smelled of menace. And John lied through his teeth, saying he barely knew her, while Emily hid under the couch. And when the men left with a warning smile, John knew the secret she carried was real, and now by helping her, he was part of it too. Whether he wanted to be or not, the following weeks dragged him deeper, as he became her protector, sneaking her food, helping her breathe when her illness worsened, but also piecing together the codes on that paper, discovering links to a company in the city that manufactured weapons under the disguise of medical research. And the further he dug, the more dangerous it became, until one night his auto shop was set ablaze, and he barely made it out alive, coughing in the smoke. And he realized they knew he had the paper, they knew he was protecting the girl, and if he didn't act, both of them would vanish like her father had. So he made the bold choice of confronting the truth head-on, sneaking into the facility with Emily's help, because despite her sickness she had a sharp mind, and she remembered things her father whispered to her: passwords, numbers, maps, before he disappeared. And inside the facility, John discovered a chilling truth. Her father had been a whistleblower, trying to expose an illegal project where children were being used as test subjects for chemical endurance. And Emily herself had been part of those experiments before her father smuggled her out, leaving behind the evidence in hopes that one day she could tell someone trustworthy. And that someone had turned out to be John, the mechanic, who never expected to be more than a simple man with a wrench. Now standing in the middle of a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of power, and with men hunting him, with fire and steel at his back, he had to decide whether to run or to fight. But Emily's trembling hand on his wrist, her whisper, "If you carry me just a little further, we can end this," gave him the strength to fight. So he did, exposing the documents to a journalist who risked everything to go public, sparking a firestorm of headlines across the country. And while the powerful tried to silence it, the truth had already spread too wide, and though John was hunted, though his shop was gone, though his life would never be the same, the nation finally knew the horror behind the innocent girl's sickness. And investigations began, arrests followed, and men who thought themselves untouchable faced the judgment of the law. But the real twist came not with the headlines, but with Emily herself. For as John carried her once more, not up the stairs, but into the bright lights of a hospital that finally gave her real care, she whispered the last part of her secret. "My father isn't dead. He's waiting for us." And John, battered and broken but still carrying her, realized this was not the end of their story, but the beginning of something greater. A journey to find the man who had sacrificed everything. And as the curtain of lies fell, the bond between a mechanic and a little girl who asked only to be carried up the stairs became the bond that changed not just their lives, but the lives of countless others, proving that sometimes the weakest voice carries the loudest truth. So, if you're still here, if you believe in the power of courage and humanity, don't just walk away, hit subscribe right now. Because stories like this are only the beginning, and the next one will shake you even more.